First item on the agenda is roll call. Director Schope.
Here.
Director Robinson.
Here.
Director Crail.
Here.
Director Parrott.
Here.
And Director Rowan, and I am present. I'd like to welcome everybody. We actually have a guest this time. That's nice. So we are on to communications and celebrations.
Which is a skinny angle. Things are getting really busy at the elementary. We are wrapping up our spring assessments. Our 3rd and 4th graders did their ISASP testing, their state testing. We have 2 students that have 2 or 1 test each left, and then we'll be fully complete. Our kindergarten through 4th grade students are completing their fast literacy and math screeners this week. And then we have our preschool that's wrapping up their gold assessments, which is kind of how they show progress in the preschool world. We took a page from the middle school's book and did a school-wide bingo. It was a PBIS celebration. It was very well received. How we did it is we had some older students. So like every older student was paired up with a younger student, and they worked together to find the numbers and kind of, they were a team of sorts. And then we had a lot of really good feedback that pairing up the older and younger students was really beneficial. And it was neat to see the older students taking that leadership kind of role. We recently had 3rd graders that completed research on an animal and ecosystem of their choice. They presented to staff and students this past Friday, answering questions and showing off their hard work. We had a few groups of 6th graders that were able to come down with one of their classes and kind of walk through, and it was just really neat to see the 6th graders were, they're better readers, so they were actually able to like read through all the project and then ask questions. And then there's one student, I'm blanking on his name right now, a 6th grade boy, that he was going around giving some really specific, genuine feedback to kids, which is just really neat to see. We are interviewing this week. We have currently an open kindergarten position, open 2nd grade, and an open interventionist position. Not everybody's leaving. 2 of them are added positions because we're growing and because of ESSER money. And so we're trying to get a good handle on that this week. We had a record year for the book fair with some fundraising. We were able to get 250 free books in students' hands. So it's always a good thing. A lot of things wrapping up the end of the year and then preparing for next year. But other than that, it's a really busy time.
Go through kindergarten. Currently, we are sitting at how many kindergartners?
Currently, we are looking to have 76 or 77, I think, kindergartners going from preschool to kindergarten next year. And that's what.
And that's not with TK, so we are going to 4 sections.
That is with TK. Or that doesn't count the kids going into TK.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That counts kids going from TK.
From TK,
Yeah,
not kids going into TK. So we are going to expand that. We always seem to have more kids coming at the fall. So that one is big enough. It's the only section we're going 4 sections with next year, but we are going to do that.
We've got a lot of other grade levels that are kind of teetering in the 70-ish. So I mean, get some kids moving in, then that's a whole other discussion. But
we are 5 to 6 kids in every grade from having to bump up another section. So
that's all I have. Any questions or anything?
thank you.
As Jared said, this is getting to be a very busy time at the middle school. Finally got to take some field trips. Jess gave us permission to go to some outdoor field trips. So the kids have been kind of excited about that. The 6th graders went to Rockford last Wednesday, and I don't know if you guys are aware or aware of that place, but you can find fossils all over the place, and they love digging for them. The building, it wasn't open, but they were able to go out and go to all the different sites, and they did a lot of digging, and they really had a great time. Little Eagle Relays, we ran that on Saturday. A little chilly in the morning when we started. It was chilly when we ended. But we ran it. There's a few glitches with the computer, which weren't anybody's fault except for whoever did it, and kind of messed things up a little bit. But we were still done by noon. It ran off very well, and we had a lot of people that helped at that. We took the conditions of learning survey. All of our kids did that on April 30th. This is the survey that the state makes us take. It kind of tells the kids' view of how safe the school is, what's the climate of the school, and so forth. We get the results of that next fall sometime. So we're hoping that we see some improvement in some areas there. We finished up our ISAF testing on the 30th also, and we actually got some scores back on Friday. And I had a little chance to work with some of them. Some of the classes I'm concerned about. The 8th grade class was real positive. We had 74% of our students who were proficient in English and language arts, which is reading and writing. And that group, we haven't taken these since 2 years ago. And in 6th grade, that group was down at under like 61%. So they went up about 13% up in number of proficient. Math was at 65%, and they went up 15 points on that, which once again was great improvement. And then in science, they didn't take it as 6th graders, but they were at 67%. Now these will change a little bit. I just took all of the kids, and when they sort them, they throw out the kids that are new to the district for a year and so forth. So they might be a little bit different than that, but I was real positive about that. The 7th graders will be attending the Iowa Cubs game coming on May 20th. Once again, it's nice to get where the kids can travel a little bit. And the 8th graders are going to get their Adventureland trip. Once again, I want to thank Jess for okaying that. Today, or this week, we're doing our last round of screenings for the year. The kids will be doing screenings in reading, math, and the social emotional health. And once again, it just gives us an idea of where we're at and what we have to do for kids to intervene and try to help them. Transitioning, we had the 4th graders come up on May 6th in the afternoon, and they spent the afternoon with our 5th graders and got a chance to tour the middle school and get the lay of the land and meet some of the teachers and so forth. And the 8th graders are going to be going up to the high school on the 26th of May, and they'll get the same thing, get the introduction to the teachers and get to see the building. The end of the year, we are going to have 2 assemblies this year. Typically, we just have the one on the last day. However, with COVID, we're going to have a 5-6 assembly on Thursday, the 27th, and the 7-8 assembly on Friday, the 28th. This will allow us to social distance. We can set kids 2 seats away from each other, and it'll also let us invite some parents in. This is big, this is kind of big deal with the presidential awards and that type of stuff. So we want to have parents have an opportunity to come in and watch those. So that's how we're going to run it this year. And then lastly, I just want to thank you. Just in case I'm not here in June, I want to thank the board for your support through my years. As principal and as a teacher, it's been an honor to work with you guys. You're extremely professional, and you really made it easy to be administrator, and I want to congratulate you on that and thank you for it. So thank you.
Thank you. right, my list is short and sweet today. Crazy at the high school, of course, like everything is like a boulder coming down the hill very, 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 very fast. Just kind of reviewing the dates for seniors. May 19th is the awards ceremony. There won't be a meal this year, but we'll be hosted at Robert Blue Middle School in the auditorium, starting at 6. Only parents can attend to that when masks are required. May 20th, we'll have the senior breakfast in the morning at 7:30, and then I'll have the service day. Again, if there's any service projects that people in the community have, they can contact Mrs. Deal at the high school, and we'll get it on the list. Commencement still May 23rd on the football field, 2 o'clock. If we're able to have it outside, no limits on guests. Masks are suggested. If it rains, we'll go inside to the elementary. And then each family will only be able to have 6 guests, and masks will be required. For grades 9 through 11, finals are going to start May 25th. So we'll have an alternative schedule on May 25th, 26th, 27th in order to accommodate larger testing periods for finals. And then the last day of school, May 28th, we're done at noon. We also have ISASP data back, which was a pretty quick turnaround. That's magical. We're gonna do a data day and dig into that early June. And then as far as PD and our area of growth for next year, we're gonna focus on reading and writing, so across the content. So that's in the works. We're working with the AAA and other resources to really target that and push that forward, so. That's it.
Thank you. The next item is conflict of interest declaration. Okay, the next item is public comment cards, which we have none. So item number 7, approval of the proposed agenda.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed agenda. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 8, the consent items.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent items as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent items as presented. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 9. Parent to address the board.
Right here, okay?
You don't need to yet.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time or letting me on the agenda today. I have nothing scripted. It's just here for as much open conversation as possible. I know you can't say maybe a whole lot, but it's important enough to me, and I know it's important enough to all of you that just to talk it out, have a discussion about, I feel what's the problem, or we have a problem mounting, or what we can do for corrections. And again, I'm not here to gripe, I'm not here to complain. I'm here as a parent or Eagle Grove citizen, just like all of you, looking to actively search for solutions for our athletic problems, I would say, or how we can improve our athletics. You know, I think 3 segments that we maybe look at, and again, I think everyone knows, but for those who don't, I have a son who's a freshman and a daughter who's in 6th grade. You know, niece that's graduated from here, nephew that's a junior, nephews that are pre-K and 4-year-old preschool next year. So just like always, there are kind of Morgans that spread out all throughout all the classes. So, but you know, just like all of us in the past and just like us here now, we chose to live here because and work here because we love Eagle Grove. We want to raise our families in Eagle Grove. We take pride in Eagle Grove. And those are all common things that we have, or all things we have in common. So again, this isn't a gripe. It's not that I know all the answers, none of those things. It's just, what are some different things that we could do to find a solution to what seems to be an issue. So I guess I'll start with, athletics has sagged some over the years. We have some bright spots, some shiny spots, and then fall off. And it seems like participation continues to be an issue. We have enrollment, you said there are more kids in most classes, at least to start the year. So enrollment rises, participation drops. That's not a good combination, because all of a sudden we're up a class in some cases while our participation sags. What is that magical answer to get that gap, to close that gap, so our participation rises with the class sizes improving? I don't know what it is either. Some of these, like I say, are rhetorical questions. I don't know, but I look at some of our neighboring towns. So what draws people to Eagle Grove? Why do we want people to come, or what gets them to decide to live here? They look at the school system, of course. They look at what the city offers. They look at housing, all those things. What seems to be, could be a slippery slope for us right now is that facilities in some neighboring towns. Humboldt has a rec center and they're looking to build a field house. Clarion has goals of building a lot of different stuff. Webster City does as well. So how do we get them to land here? Now, I know we're in a predicament because we have a school across the way that is number one priority if and when we can try to figure something out. So that kind of limits us on what we can do for funding for athletics. So that kind of checks that off a little bit, right? So moving into the next step of, again, and I'm just looking at this as an outsider. I don't know all the details that you guys do. From coaches' accountability. So coaches are hard enough to find as is, right? So that's a tough thing to do. But here we sit without an AD right now. Is this the right opportunity to tweak that system where coaches' accountability is held high by the AD, who the AD is somewhat of a recruiter? Someone that's walking the halls every day saying, hey, why aren't you out for this? Hey, why aren't you out for that? And if there's a disconnect with that kid goes out for sports between that student and the coach, theoretically in the hierarchy, the AD is higher than the coach and they need to have a discussion, right? So, that's kind of the second step, looking at potentially having an AD be that recruiter or that promoter of all sports or activities for that matter, not just limiting to sports, but extracurriculars, because they're a big deal to all of us in some way, shape, or form. We have memories on a field, on a mat, on a gym floor, in a band room, and all those different things. So how do we get that involvement up? And coaches' accountability may not be, you got to put a banner on the wall in 3 years or you walk. It might just be, what's the current state of the sport? In 3 years, how can we improve it to a level that is better than today? From kids' attitudes to hopefully some winning. I'm not saying that we have to win state championships all the time. While great, winning and losing those are great things to learn as a kid, right? And some that win all the time don't learn how to lose, and that's a problem too. So even just getting competitive would be a big step. But there again, finding good coaches or finding coaches is a challenge. So in a little bit of a pickle there, or an AD, that's not an easy thing. Last but not least, it's something that some people would frown upon instantly without even knowing any of the details. But what if some sports looked at joining with neighboring towns? Now, Humboldt probably wouldn't be interested because that'd bump them up to a really big class. Webster City probably wouldn't be either. What about Clarion and Belmont? We have Belmont coming over right now for baseball, and everything that I've heard out of my son has been great, outstanding. They mesh and gel pretty well in a week's time. I don't know if Jake said the same. And that's exciting because it proves, I think, a little bit of the point that sometimes swallowing our pride is a hard thing, right? And maybe that is time. If coaches are, or maybe the time is now, if coaches are that hard to find, or without an AD, and numbers are lagging, maybe Wright County, and I'm not gonna speak for Belmont, or Clarion for that matter, but maybe some of us go out and try to pursue that. Because you look at our neighboring counties or towns, we have Humboldt, they don't compete with anybody in their county. Algona doesn't compete with anybody in their county, they've all joined. Webster City does a little bit with South Hamilton, but they've also taken on Northeast Hamilton. It just seems to kind of, and I'm not saying just because it's happening around us, it needs to be the case for us, but, you know, it doesn't mean we lose our school. But does that mean we could be more competitive, fill some of these, fill some of our teams? I don't know, again, I don't know the answers, I'm just throwing a whole bunch of things out there and see what sticks, because if we can better our programs, better the opportunities for the kids, I mean, I guess that's why I'm here. And not that it's for anyone's lack of trying, I'm not saying that either. So again, this is with full respect, not out of gripe, not out of complaint, just looking for ideas. How do we get to that point or get over this hump? And I think Belmont coming for baseball, and I'm not saying it's Belmont necessarily, I think that's proving a valid point of what maybe we all need to look into, and some, myself included, parents with a lot of pride for Eagle Grove athletics and don't want to maybe admit that this needs to happen. Well, maybe it does. And you know, maybe the roadblock sometimes is the parent. It's the coach, because of selfish reasons for ourselves, or what it used to be like, or what it is today because I'm the coach of this squad today. Well, is that the betterment of the kid, or the kids, or the team, or the program? Maybe not. You know, I look at today and I say, if I didn't do anything today, if I didn't come in and just have a conversation about this today, in 6 years, my daughter's gonna be graduated. Who knows, come together the day after she graduates and they have all the success, which I would still applaud and wear Eagle Grove, be excited, but I would be mad at myself for not being here today. Because I think it brings stability to, not stability, it brings excitement to the community, it brings stability to the classroom, having a bunch of kids in extracurricular activities that have coaches that are holding them accountable in the classroom. Or, you know, it doesn't have to be athletics. Like I said, it could be more drama, real drama, opportunity. That's the way it is. Or it could be a speech. It could be, you know, any of those things. Whenever there's a group of people coming together with common interest, those kids hold each other accountable, and so does their instructor or coach. So I guess, you know, I've rambled on about a lot of different things, but I guess the passion for and the drive for bettering the opportunities for our kids, I don't think they will quit. I think we're all going to continue to do it. But I think open-mindedness because I think I see the Belmont pieces on the agenda tonight. I would not be, if that was for the best interest of the kids, and even if it doesn't work in coming together in some aspects, I would be for it, just because I think it's something different. You know, the definition of insanity, right, is continue to do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result. Well, you know, I think we're trying and trying and trying. It's not because of lack of effort. It's just it's not changing. You know, so how do we get out of that rut, or how do we, in some sports, and not say that every sport has to. That's the other thing, is it could be decided that it's just a few sports here or there that decide to. But once that ball starts rolling, I think it also, in cases like that, it promotes a higher efficiency of fund usage. You know, if you don't have to put all of these monies into all of these facilities anymore, because you're joined in some cases, I think, you know, you could put more into some facilities, while if the home events are at the neighboring school you're joined with, they can put those funds into there, and all of a sudden you're looking like a 3A or 4A school, because it's just a better utilization of funds. You can focus them a lot better in certain areas. But I know there's not much response, and you can't say much of a response, but a lot of you are parents in here of kids that have gone through, or kids that are yet to go through, active now. And I just wanted to kind of put this out there for all of you, but even all the parents that may be listening or reading. I I think we need to keep an open mind on what this looks like, because this is something that's kind of unprecedented really, and how the changes could be. And if the open-mindedness is, if someone comes with ideas, I just ask that you consider and be open-minded to some of those solutions to, just for the betterment of our kids, as you guys do all the time. It's no different than what you do all the time, but it's just an outside the box thing that it's really hard to open up to. But the Belmont thing, after 7 days, 6 days after just hearing, not really seeing, just hearing, I've warmed up to it pretty fast, because I think it's going to create some opportunity for our kids during the season and hopefully during the postseason. So, but that's all I have. I appreciate the time. Again, it's not a gripe, it's not a complaint, it's not that anyone did wrong or anything else. I want to make sure that we're clear there, just because I don't have the answers either, and I don't know what the answers are. But I think it's important enough for all of us, whether it's, I just think it's important enough to talk about and start thinking about what can we do different to bring those levels up. So,
Now, as far as the board goes, this is an informational item. We cannot take any action toward it. But since it was listed on the agenda, we can ask questions. So if you have questions for Boone, you certainly can ask them.
Could I make a comment, John?
Yeah.
You know, my son's playing, and this whole, he's all into baseball. He loves baseball. He's very good at it. And we were really worried that we were not gonna have enough to even have a team this year. And we were actually looking about where can we move, or where can we take Jake so that, he has an opportunity to play, because he wants to play in college. And he was been really down about it, and having those kids from Belmont show up just changed the whole complexion of everything. It was 8 kids. Some of them are varsity, some of them are JV, but what it does is it gives you some athletes that can play, and then your younger kids don't have to come up and try to compete against 11th graders and 12th graders and get their butts kicked all the time. So they can be competitive and they can win some games. And that's how you end up building the program. But I agree with him on that. It made a huge difference in the attitude out there. And anyway, that's what I got.
I can speak to being an athlete who was in a school where we just shared certain sports. I played basketball, and it was 2 schools combined, and there's some logistics with it. So we had to travel to, girls basketball was shared, and then wrestling was shared between these 2 schools. We didn't share much of anything else. Every other week we would practice in one building versus another. So every other week we would travel the 30 minutes to the other school, practice in their facility, back and forth. Games were scheduled in both, like home games. And that added a little bit of travel time, The school though provided the bus, so we all load the bus and go over there, and we came back together. There was no separate driving or anything like that. They tried to have coaches from both districts, I think, be a part of the whole team, from varsity all the way down to the JV stuff, just to try to keep that, so you didn't have any accusations of, favoritism from one school to another. They combined the name, so I think the one team was like Blackhawks or something, and then my school was Blue Jays, so we were Jayhawks, and then they combined our colors for those specific teams. It worked, we combined for what we needed, so like my school's basketball team didn't need, so they never combined. So I don't know, that's just from my own experience as an athlete, we had to do that. Can't say I loved the bus rides, but we were used to it, we did it all the way through, so.
Did you think you got opportunities you wouldn't have had otherwise?
Yeah, I think you would have had a similar situation where you would have had to stack everybody 9-12 on your varsity just to play. But this way we did have an A squad and a B squad. That's what was educated in Minnesota, so it's a little different, but, in terms, I know. We played actual girls basketball. We didn't do that 6-on-6 stuff, y'all.
Hey, now.
I think so. I mean, I think it was tricky as a student sometimes because, you did have these other people that you didn't go to school with, so those relationships maybe weren't always as tight. But that could have also been when we were girls, first off. 2, it could have just been, our group that year, because I think there's an element of different kids mesh differently, and it doesn't matter where you're from. And I think there's an element too of what kind of culture the coaches make. So, but it happened. It was what it was.
Do you see that with social media now being much of an issue? I mean, it seems like the kids are always, I see our kids wearing other towns' clothes and they know other kids from other schools, I feel, a lot more than even when I was in school. So do you feel that would be an issue? I don't know if it would. I don't feel it would, but I don't know. With you being around them, I just was wondering.
I don't think so. I think you're right. I think you get a lot more mixing of kids, especially at the high school level now than we did. Yeah, because we didn't. It was kind of comical because sometimes we'd come home from practice where we had to be, a team, and then our boys' basketball teams were competing. So now we sit on opposite sides of the gym, But, that was just kind of a unique situation. I think they still play together, and so it's been 20 years.
So coming from smaller school districts, this is not unusual conversations. Where what I've learned through my experience though is those decisions cannot come from the top and go down. They have to come from the kids and the parents and the conversations on equal grounds from other, from the communities, and then come up to us this way. And it's a lot more successful that way. If I come in with the idea that says, this is what we're going to do, you fight resistance right away. If you get parents and kids and supporters to say, yes, if it comes from the bottom side that says, here's what we want to address, let's have some conversations, you can start the conversations, and then you see if it grows or where it grows from there, you have a lot more chance of success. From a kid's standpoint, they adapt very, very easily. And just like you said, if you add 7, 8 kids, it bolsters your roster and it gives you a lot more opportunity. I've said for years, you've got problems with putting freshman kids out on a football squad and just getting them smeared by a senior linebacker that's coming through. Those will always be a concern, and it's not here. That's every school in the state of Iowa that doesn't have big numbers. So, I guess just that's my comment is it can happen and be very successful with social media. They know more kids from that area than we ever do. If you didn't get in a car, you didn't know. But it can be successful. There's got to be a driving force from the bottom, and it's got to be equal. It can't be a swallow. If there's a swallow situation, it never goes well. But if you can go into it equal, it goes very well.
I just think participation has been a huge key. I mean, I've observed it with both of my girls. And I'll give the example. Scott coached Mackenzie and Lane in 8th grade. 12 or 13 girls on that team.
I think there was more.
At
than
least.
More than that.
And they were 17 and 2. And by the time they were seniors, there were 3 girls left of that group. And I mean, you talk about disappointing. I mean, because that group was talented, had numbers, and it just progressively went down in every sport as they got older. And I don't know what the answer to that is. And that's been the struggle for me.
And I think it's everywhere though. I mean, it's not
Right.
obviously here. It's unless you have a bigger school district, your numbers are going down. You aren't going to have enough. I mean, unless it's something everybody wants to play.
To your point, Scott, like Max didn't go out for football because he doesn't like it. He's 90 pounds, knowing that he's gonna, he could run the risk of playing in the backfield. I mean, in the D backfield if he needed to. Even JV was too. If there was a 9th grade squad, if we had a big enough team, he is all over it because he loves football.
And that's one of my issues is I think you're going to open it up for more kids to be able to play if it happened, whether it's on JV or whatever, because you'll have enough kids to fill a whole varsity and hopefully maybe a JV. And so
we didn't get to have a JV season last year because we didn't have enough kids.
Yep. And so now some of those kids may not ever play, but they would if you had enough for a JV and a varsity or 2 different ones.
And they'll get better when they can play competitively at their appropriate level.
Yeah, and I don't care who they're playing against, but as long as they can play.
And I think coaching is an issue. You know, like I said, we've struggled to have coaches, and I think boys basketball was another prime example. The last 2 years, without that third coach, we've had a lot of kids who never really got to play or practice and develop because there just wasn't the time for 2 coaches to devote to potentially 3 teams. And so who loses out are the ones that need to be developing, you know, and so I think then we lose kids that way too. So I mean, it's like you said, it's a handful of things that, you know, all kind of contribute.
But I think in this situation, and I don't disagree with anything, but we need to have some group like Jess talked about that brings it to us, but don't just bring us, this is a problem and you need to figure it out. You need to bring us answers. And I think to do that, you have to have some, maybe a little longer conversations about, okay, these are the issues that we're seeing and identifying. When we talk about sharing, what issues does that bring up, whether it's travel, whether it's the limited discussions about sharing that I've heard so far, and not everybody hears them, but yeah, we might be interested, but everything's going to be done in our town and you guys aren't going to get anything out of this. Well, I don't think that the general public is going to be any interested in a sharing agreement like that. So we need to identify problems, whether it be with sharing, whether it be with facilities, whether it be with coaches, whether it be with whatever, identify all that information, and then we can talk about the answers to it, because otherwise, you know, you're trying to put a Band-Aid on the Titanic and it ain't gonna work. So I think we can do these things. I think the Belmont thing was an important thing that just basically came out of the blue. And I think there are more opportunities, but I think it's gotta be fleshed out a lot more than what we have right now. I think we do have some younger coaches that are coming into the system that may help with the recruiting. You know, unless we're gonna change things, the AD position is, you know, 3 periods, so they're gonna have another job to do, so they're not gonna be able to recruit every period or things like that, but if our coaches are in our buildings, it's a lot easier for them to recruit, to make sure the kids make it to the weight room and do those things. So again, that's identifying a problem. The coaches are not in the buildings enough and not doing the recruiting and things. And we can maybe come up with the answer for that by hiring, you know, people that are in our buildings. So I don't know, you know, sports boosters are going through a big transition now because the league from sports boosters is leaving town. Travis is moving, so they're gonna have to come up with some new leadership in that group. Maybe the sports boosters are a participant. I don't know who should be included. Obviously, school staff. I don't know who all would belong in a group that's going to have these discussions. But again, that's something that needs to be done first. Anytime you identify a problem, you got to put the right group together to fix it. So
You will have, after the paper runs this, you will have people contact you. If you need a forum or a place to set up a meeting, we can provide you a meeting where you can just have informational talk and see if it's something that grows from there, if it dies there. So if that's something you want to pursue, get a hold of me and we can see what we can facilitate with that.
So let's say let's just hypothetically talk about it. So if a group from Eagle Grove gets together and a group from Clarion that gets together, and I'm just gonna use pickleball because we don't have that, so no one takes offense to any of the sports that I pick. So let's just say we decide to put our pickleball team together in these groups of parents, active parents, and we come back and say, this is what our thoughts are here. What's the go forward from there? So we have, if we put this group together and there's enough, I mean, is it petition worthy? It's not really a petition for anything. Signatures, not really, maybe it's signatures of support, not really a petition because it's not a petition. Like what proves to to you and to Clarion's board that we need to actively do something, because we can get together as a group, but if we don't know the beyond of what it takes for logistics and for all those things, and help, maybe we support all coaches involved, or we have to cull a coach, or what, those are things that are out of our control at that point. So then it would be back to here and maybe a joint school board meeting between the two. What would you guys like to see, I guess?
So here
out
would
of
be
a
your
group?
process with that is, once you have conversations, if you come up with a plan that says, here's some things we'd like to explore. Then from a school district standpoint, depending on who your sharing partner is, you can put together exploratory meetings. An exploratory meeting, I would have 2 board members go to, your AD, and who, your people involved, and you discuss it.
Okay.
If, when it comes out of that, let's say you bring it to me and you say, we'd like to do this, and I say, I'm not putting that on an agenda.
Mhm.
Then you can go and you can do the petition. Then you can go and you
Yeah.
can do that type of stuff.
Petition
But-
was a poor choice.
Yeah, but
Signature
I mean,
is
that,
poor.
that's your last resort.
Sure,
Because
yeah.
at first you're working up through the system to where
Yep.
either John puts it on the agenda or I, that we
Yep.
do that.
Yep.
But I would start small to have the conversations to say, is this something that has enough interest that it's worth expanding more?
Mhm.
And if it is, then you ask the school to help you facilitate those conversations.
But I think before you even get that far, you need to identify those possible issues. As in, if you're going to, and you said Clarion, if you're going to go talk to some patrons from Clarion, you have to go with the thought that, okay, if we're interested in pursuing this, we have to have ground rules. And that does not mean that everything is done in Eagle Grove or everything is done in Clarion. Because if we get down that path and all of a sudden we find, well, we've got this major roadblock that we can't get over, then we just wasted a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
And I like, the having games in each
Mhm.
town and things like that. But again, from what I heard so far, the other people were not interested in that. They were just interested in us going to their facility.
Sure.
I think part of that too is starting with the community,
Mhm.
like you already said, because I think some of those people, from what I understand, they have said, starting from the top and going down, if nobody communicated below that, what was the community's feelings? What were the people that put us here? What were their feelings on where it should be?
It always builds better from the bottom up.
Yeah,
from the
and
top.
but that's what I'm saying is, who made the decisions on, we're not sending anybody there, because Hampton and Belmont shared soccer. And they did share, literally. I mean, they met in a halfway point, it's in Belmont's, or Hampton's district. Well, then all of a sudden, Belmont had enough kids to have their own soccer team because everybody started going out. Well, now they're running their own boys and girls soccer team because they had enough people interested.
And that's another issue, since you just brought it up, is are these agreements going to be long-term, or are these agreements for renewal? Because say we come up and all of a sudden we've got, 80 kids out for football, then do we really want to share at that point, or, whatever it is? So again, that's identify possible weaknesses or issues that can come up. And then, kind of flesh out an outline of what's going to happen. And there's a lot to it. We have experience sharing. We've shared ag teacher, we shared a transportation director. We're no longer doing either one.
We have kids going to play soccer in Webster City. We have kids who go to Fort Dodge to swim. I mean, there's.
The difficult thing here is we each have our own programs to where, when you're sharing one individual, it's easy to say who's gonna be the teacher, who's gonna be the coach. Where this time, it's a little bit different in that we have 2 separate pillars that we're trying to bring them together. So I mean, that part will be a little bit tougher, but I do think that if we think that from a parent level, or if I think that this is the first time it's been talked about in Eagle Grove or Clarion, that's not even close. It's real.
Yeah.
But you
And
may find out,
conversations are happening there just as much as they are here.
you may
because-
find out in your first meeting nobody wants, that it's a dead issue. And that's why it starts at the bottom. If you get the first meeting, you keep fighting over whose bus you take,
Yep.
you start getting away. So
Yeah, right,
that's, you've got to start having initial conversations if it's something wrong.
right. Yep, you bet.
I have one question that I'm pondering here. I can see us sharing like every sport, just about it. How would you share football where if you brought, like, we didn't have enough kids?
Mhm.
Where they've already set up your.
You gotta do it on the 2-year
schedule
cycle.
based- What's that?
You have to wait for the 2-year cycle.
You do, you
Yep.
can't.
Football's
you
the only one that's really
Okay,
locked into
that's what
that
I was
way.
wondering.
So you couldn't do anything in 2 years. And if other, like Belmont with baseball, they got a waiver for 1 year because it was an emergency situation. The associations are still gonna try to let kids play. Football's a little bit different that way. But for the most part, if you would even try to share something else, you're a year away. Football, you're always gonna be 2 years away.
Even like if there's a safety issue, because we have that low of number of kids, or you just
They-
opt out of the varsity.
They'd probably tell you to opt out of the varsity and play JV schedule.
Okay.
That's when you would have to ask for a waiver or something,
Sure.
opt out or something like that.
The only, I don't even want to say this because I don't know if it'd be true or not, but because you're both bigger schools,
Yeah.
if it could bump you up and you filled in a district, they might let you do it.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
as you get bigger, but right now it's set on number of schools in each one. I don't think football would be a possibility.
No.
There are a lot of discussions at the associations about changing the way that they look at these school sizes and stuff, because, if you're counting every kid that goes to the high school, as the population changes, there's a higher percentage of kids that just don't participate in sports because that's not in their culture. And so they are having discussions about, do we talk about low SES kids maybe not counting, or do we talk about a lot of different factors? So it is a problem when, I think it was when Algona took in somebody, maybe it was Humboldt, all of a sudden it jumped them up a class and whoa, this is a lot, we didn't anticipate that. So there's a lot to it. I don't think, if you're expecting something to happen overnight, I don't think that's probably in the realm of possibility. It's good to have the discussions, even simple things like, if you're sharing football, they have a coach, we have a coach, is that what's going on? Can the two coaches coexist?
Right.
There's a lot to it. But I think it's worth undertaking. But again, even within this group, you identified under concerns, participation numbers. I don't know that there's an easy answer. Facilities. Clarion's talking about building turf baseball, turf softball. The high school association currently will not let them have tournament games on those facilities because they don't accept turf fields. So they would not be able to have a district game or a sub-state game at the facility because that's not allowed. Now, that may change because a lot of schools are building turf, but currently they don't allow that. Coaches' accountability. I think right now we have a teacher's handbook, we have a contract with the coaches. Maybe we come up with a coach's handbook that says, okay, these are the things that you have to do, things like that. In the sharing issue, you're going to have some hurt feelings over sharing. It's just the nature of the beast.
Yep.
But as we move forward, that's, if we're talking about facilities, can you help us identify some sources for money
Right.
for this or that? Whatever it is, and every school is having issues. I know, Clarion softball and baseball both have new coaches this year, so they have program issues. So, but I think it's a good way to start, but, maybe come up with an idea of what groups should be involved in this, whether, it comes out of the sports boosters or whether it comes out of, an alumni group or, and it's really, really difficult right now to get these groups together because of this stuff.
Yeah.
We've wanted to have public meetings, but it's just almost impossible to do right now. So, we certainly, I think Jess is right. It needs to come from the bottom up, and then the board can have something to react to. Right now, we have a whole basket full of issues, but we have nothing to react to, so. But we do appreciate the, bringing it to our attention, and hopefully we can all work together. Anybody else have any questions?
I just have one question. In regard to participation from students, athletically, not like non-athletically, do you see that involvement in extracurricular activities outside of athletics is down as well?
In, like at the middle school, band and chorus are way down. The reason why, I don't know. I think some of it is socioeconomic, that a lot of kids, have to go home and take care of their brothers or sisters after school, or we have kids like jazz band. We always have jazz band the first thing in the morning. Well, if you ride a bus and, you don't have anybody to bring you in to do that, you don't have a jazz band. I mean, you just can't get enough people there. So that's kind of the stuff we're seeing, that it is, we have less than we used to have, even when we have more kids now.
With bigger classes.
Yeah.
So are those, like in middle school, are extracurricular besides sports, are they before and after school, or are they occurring during school hours?
They're the extra things, like band and chorus are in school, but then they have like the mariachi band and a jazz band and so forth. Those would be after or before.
Okay,
And your sports are after.
Yeah, and all the sports are after.
is that true in high school then too?
I couldn't tell you about the history of band and choir. I'm not sure if it is comparative to, 10 years ago.
I think
I would say that band seems to be holding.
Yeah,
I
but
feel
band
like-
has actually grown a little bit.
I feel like choir's a little lower. I don't know, like even with the play, I'm not really sure how many kids outside of the choir, like participate in the play beyond. I know that all the kids that are in choir in the fall are in the play. Speech and drama, I think they have a core group of about 10-ish or so. Maybe it's a little bit more, a little bit less. They did well this year. Obviously that could be much bigger, but I know there is an element too of students having to take care of siblings, students working. We have a lot of that because it's even hard to get them to come in, say, before or after school for help. We have the study hall, but some kids need a little bit more than that. And you just can't, and there is an element too with the cultural differences, because the expectation for some of our families is that they go home and they have a job, whether it's a family job or an actual job, but there's expectations that they are helping with younger siblings and such like that, staying after school is just not an option. So we kind of run into that a little bit.
I know FFA has got a little bit of a numbers challenge, Jack tells me. I don't know about FBLA, I don't know if they're
I'm not
staying
sure.
strong, because they were really strong at one
Right.
time, so.
I don't know how big they are. I mean, we even had trouble this year getting kids to apply to be student council. Like at one point, there was only like 4 apps. Well, we need like 4 per grade level, So I'm not sure where that's at. I know the deadline was supposed to be Friday, but we were struggling with that too.
But
I
I
just
think,
think there's so many other things that can draw kids away from activities, and I think if you have, if you're winning and it's really a positive situation, you got kids that want to come out. But if if you're struggling, kids look at that and go, geez, one of Jake's best friends said, why do I want to play baseball? We're just gonna lose at every game. And that was before we got the Belmont kids. But that's kind of the thought process, So
And I,
having success will help a lot.
I think that'll help build your program. I mean, more, like you say, more kids will want to go out. It's that way everywhere.
But again, that's back to recruiting, and I know that Jack has had a little bit of success recruiting kids to ag and FFA, because everybody assumes if you're gonna be an FFA that you have to farm or you have to do this. Well, that's not really true. You can do a lot of different things that are involved in ag that doesn't include raising a livestock or farming a farm. There's a whole lot of ag business, all kinds of things that are associated with it. He's had a couple kids that have committed because they said, well, I didn't know I could do that. So recruiting is an important part.
One of the things that I've been very pleased about is we now have a nice group of kids that are going in and lifting 3 times a week. I mean, it has grown to, I don't know, 20, 25 kids, and we haven't had that in a long time. So I think that's a really, really positive thing that they're getting in there. That'll help us a lot. Got to do the same thing with the girls now, though. We can't get the girls in there because it really helps them
Smells like
also.
boys in
Anybody else got any questions? Well, thank you very much for
Thank you,
bringing it.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Item number 10, approved purchases over $25,000.
I have 2 at this time. One is kitchen equipment. We are going to update the kitchen equipment at the high school. There is no actual piece of equipment over $25,000, but when you put them all together, they are over $25,000. I'm just asking for board approval on that. The second thing is for Olson's Plumbing, to convert the heaters in the first and second wings to electronic controls. Right now, they are pneumatic and they run on air, and people have cut the wires and they're just junk. So we need to update that. So I would ask permission to go ahead with those 2 purchases.
I'll make the motion to approve those purchases.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the purchases over $25,000. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 11, SBRC request.
SBRC has allowed for an additional request this time, which has helped us because we have one more chemical removal. It was ethyl. It was extremely old. You have to put it in a box, carry it out in case it would explode. And so we have them come get it out of the lab. And that was done after we put our last request in. So I would like to make that request to SBRC for that money.
So moved.
There you go.
It's been moved and second to approve the SBRC request. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 12, school fees and lunch prices for 21-22.
School fees and lunch prices. From a lunch price standpoint, excuse me, we will keep them the same. Next year, the government, US government has allowed free lunches for everybody again, so we do not need to change those. School fees, last year we waived the school fees because we didn't have a registration format where people could come in and pay them. This year, we are going to a better version of online registration, which will allow us to go through and do all of that and collect the school fees. So we would like to, Teresa, is there a sheet? What page do I have for school?
Page
fees?
35.
We are recommending that we keep everything the same as we have in the past, minus the towel fee. We just are ready to get rid of that one. So our recommendation would be no changes to the lunch fees, reinstate the proposed 21-22 school fees back to what they were before.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the school fees and lunch prices.
I got a question.
Yep.
So I know when I go to pay lunch, I get charged a service fee to pay that.
Okay, if you
Is
pay
that-
it with a credit card or with your debit card.
Okay,
Yep.
so if I go to online register, am I getting charged that as well, if it's the same as lunch?
Mr. Lennon, can you answer that question?
So any fees that we incur or people pay online, pay with a credit card, or yeah, we pass on the charges.
Correct.
Otherwise, the school loses 4% for processing or whatever the cost on the.
So otherwise the school pays for it.
Yeah,
Right,
so,
basically.
so what, you've got two options. You can do it by credit card or debit
Right.
card, or you can write a check still. So if
Okay,
you write a check and drop it off at the school, and what we did, this goes back, I gotta remember for sure, but 3 or 4 years ago, there was a fee that they charged like 4%. We just went and put an average fee of, do you know what it is, Lance? Is it $3 or $4?
Yeah, there's a three. Yeah.
Then there's an average fee, and over time it balances out and pays the fees that we have to pay for the convenience of the credit card.
so if I online registered, then I can bring a check in?
Yeah.
I just don't pay, I submit all my paperwork and just not, because I've had people ask me on this.
Yeah,
That's- I'm
And
just-
that would be my guess, wouldn't you, Lance? Is they can,
So will have training on it on Wednesday.
Okay.
and I'll ask the
it's new.
question.
I realize that, I don't,
But I,
a lot of
I would
people
say
don't like
it's
paying
no
those.
different than lunch right now. You can bring a check in. We also have the lock drop box out here. where
Right.
They can literally drop it off, not have to have an interaction. So I do believe that would be an option. I can't say
So we're-
100%.
We'll know more next week.
that'd
Well,
be
by the
curious,
June
because
meeting.
that's still,
No, you're right.
Not
It's like
full
insurance.
online
If you pay your
then.
insurance every month, they'll charge you $5. But if you
Right.
pay it for 6 months, you don't have to pay it. So,
right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just curious as to how that'll shake out, if that would be effective, or,
We're still kind of discussing, you know, if we want to just send a bill to everyone. But then some people would rather pay it online with their credit card. So
right.
We get
and
them
we've
both.
never really accepted credit cards
Yep. No, I just was
wanna
asking,
do
like I
that
said, I had a
too.
few people had asked, because is it gonna be the same as lunch where
for
there's
the
a,
sake of convenience.
And
fee on
here's the
that,
thing
so-
is anymore, you pay a convenience fee, which that's essentially what it is for almost anything you do. You register your vehicles online, you
Right.
pay your taxes online.
no, I agree, I just was, I just wanted to bring it
I
up.
can tell you this, if you pay with a credit card online, there's gonna be a convenience fee
Right.
because they're gonna charge that.
Right.
So, yep.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 13, music trip request.
Music is looking at a trip this time to Branson, not this year, but next year. On page 36 and 37, it tells the destination of it. This is actually in 38, it's something that they do all the fundraising for and pay. Some of it is carryover from 2 years ago or last year when we got our trip canceled. As long as they're doing the work, I'm okay with it, so I would recommend you approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the music trip request. Are there any questions or discussion? Do we have fairly hard language in these things so that if they don't do their job fundraising,
Oh, the kids.
well, or somebody, because I think we got hung for some.
Yes, for this one, if they don't have the money, they've got to have it by a certain date to reserve the spot. On the flip side, where the hard language isn't, where we ran into last year, the company could still give the trip, but we couldn't go anywhere because it all closed for COVID, and they were just keeping our money. And so we had to kind of rebook it to move it forward to another thing. So from our standpoint, yes, we're protected that way, but we're not protected from the standpoint of, I'll give you last year's example, because I talked to the guy and argued with him, but they still would honor the trip and charge us $400. They just couldn't take us anywhere because COVID wouldn't do it. So we would have drove a bus, stayed in the hotel, and drove a bus back.
I guess I'm wanting to make sure that our staff members understand that, you know, they can't just go out and do this stuff and don't worry about it, we'll collect the money later.
This one, I believe the money is collected, because we've done this one for years.
Right.
It's paid for the spot when you reserve.
I don't think we've ever had an issue, but
Yep.
we need to be careful that we don't end up with deficits in these accounts, because then everybody has to pay, and that wasn't the deal that was made.
Yep.
So. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 14, ESSER funds.
If you go to page 39, that is some of the ESSER funds that we are taking from general fund transfer to the Pebble Fund. With ESSER is the government money that we received. We are spending out our ESSER 2 funds. Once we get that all spent out, then we'll move to our ESSER 3. Normally with the stuff like that's on page 39, you would pay for out of Pebble Silo, which we did once they gave us more money. Now we can go pay the general fund, have the general fund pay back Pebble Silo, and then claim it against our ESSER money and start drawing it down. So we've put together some proposals. It's one of those that I will continue to update on how we spend our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 money. That is on page 40 of your packet. Shows some of the different stuff that we have purchased. Some says ordered, some says working on it. And we will keep that going. If you look at my notes, how we're also spending that money out, we are responsible for 20% of ESSER 3 funds has to go to work on lost learning. Well, you can't spend your ESSER 3 money until you spent your ESSER 2 money. So we're working really hard on spending the ESSER 2 money. So when we go back and hire the interventionist for next year, they start counting against your 20%. So if you put all 3 pages together of notes, that's what we are asking for ESSER fund expenditures and transfers for ESSER 2. And each month we'll probably be looking at some of this stuff for approval.
So are we
I'll make a motion for it.
close to the SR2, eating at it?
Yeah, I think we'll have it all. If the state allows what we spent, we'll have it all spent this month.
Okay.
And then we'll be ready for ESSER
Just-
3 going into the next year,
Okay.
which is $1.7 million. That's why you gotta get the ESSER 2
Yeah, you get one
spent,
done, yeah.
so you can start spending the others, because that's where the 20% requirement is.
SR2 didn't have that.
ESSER 2 did not have.
Okay,
So we have a motion.
Was that you, Darren?
I'll second.
It's been seconded to approve the ESSER funds expenditures and transfers. Are there any other questions or discussion?
I just get a question. So things that are ordered, are those approved items?
Yes, those have been approved. So I have to go through a process for anything over $5,000
Yep.
and put it in to get the state's approval to do it. So once
That's what I was-
I put it on the list, once I get approval, then I go get it. So
Okay.
if you look at like the 2 Suburbans that are ordered, I got approval for them.
Yeah, I know the last meeting you were talking that.
You don't see a bus on there, they never approve the bus. So,
That's why it's denied.
yeah. Oh, does it say that on?
Yeah, it says
there?
bus for
Okay.
spacing, denied. And so I was like, okay, so did it all get approved or?
No.
Okay. That was my question.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 15, NCCS agreement for 21-22.
Page 41, you have our NCSS agreement. We do send students to it. If they're special ed, it comes out of special ed. If they're regular ed, it comes out of dropout prevention. Like I said, we have students that go to it. We utilize it. I'd recommend that you keep that, or that you approve that.
Motion for that approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the NCCS agreement. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 16, early graduation request.
You have 2 early graduation requests. This would be for next year, pending that they complete all the classes. I would recommend you approve this.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the early graduation requests. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 17, shared social worker position.
Working with Claire and Goldfield, one of the sharing positions that you can do is a shared social worker position. We have some needs. We actually have mental health needs. I'm not sure this is going to address our mental health needs, but we also have poverty and other issue needs to address. We are going to try this. We were able to hire a person, so we will have a person half-time or a social worker half-time next year with this approval. I would recommend that you approve it. then we will work with our administrators to see job description and how we can use the position.
So there is somebody already hired.
We got, if it's approved, we gotta get it in for it. We didn't know if we can get any candidates or not.
Sure.
So,
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the shared social worker position. Are there any questions or discussion?
And you said there's state money, sharing money.
they're sharing money for it. Yep.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 18, mask mandate decision.
Okay, so currently we have a mask mandate in place through the end of the school year. I am recommending that we keep that in place through the end of the school year. Once the school year ends, we need to know how to proceed from there. Last day of school with teachers, I don't know exactly, June 2nd, June 3rd, whenever they come back on Monday. Yes?
June 1st.
June 1st, I had a question. June 1st. So when we come back on the Monday on June 1st, I would recommend that we don't do anything with our mask mandate through June 1st. And then that is when we'll close out our school year. At that point, we have summer school and we have other staff working in the building. We have those type of things. I need you to make a decision on what we're going to do with it. My current guidance would be, as long as you have been vaccinated and you can stay 6 feet apart, I don't know if you need to wear a mask. You guys tell me how you want to proceed after we get through this school year.
I'm assuming you're talking teachers and staff.
Teachers, staff, students, that type of stuff. So for summer school, and Jared and I have talked about it, outside, we don't see any reason to wear masks. You know, if they go out for recess, if they go outside for activities, are we going to require the kids to wear them in the classroom? Are we going to require the teachers to wear them in the classroom? Most of your teachers have been vaccinated. What is our plan to move forward with it?
What about athletics buses this summer?
That's all the stuff we got to cover with it. So the current one really will expire after June 1st when this year wraps up. I need you guys to give me some guidance on how to proceed.
Don't look at me.
What does staff feel?
People are ready to get rid of masks.
That's,
I can tell you that.
I've had a handful that have said to me that they're walking around like this and,
I don't care if you're a kid, an adult, what it is, people are ready to get rid of masks.
yeah,
It's tough monitoring it.
Yeah.
It's gotten
That's-
really bad.
that's what
That's
I've
my complaints have
heard as
been,
well
is
too.
trying to monitor it, and to be honest, I mean, I travel all over the county and it's everywhere. I mean,
Are there any concerns with the younger kids who won't have had even the option to get vaccinated?
You would always leave masks as an option that they could wear, you know, for your own protection if you wanted to. Yeah, you're not going to have, it looks like they're going to have a vaccine for kids 12 through 16 here pretty soon. That doesn't mean we're gonna make them take it.
Right.
So we're in a whole different boat when we look to come back to next school year. But like Scott said, when they're in the dugouts and softball, do they have to wear them? When they're on a bus, do they have to wear them? If my teacher's in their classroom working over the summer, do they have to wear them?
is there any guidance from the state?
Yeah, the guidance you'll see, which is not strong when they'll say it, is they recommend you still wear a mask.
Sure.
I mean, that's what you constantly see. If you want the safest practice, you have everybody wear masks.
I go back to basketball and the kids out on the court didn't have to wear it, but the kids sitting on the bench had to wear them, you know, because they were sitting side by side. And as soon as they came off the bench and went into the game, they didn't have to wear it. So that part of it to me didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I mean, that's probably where we are on some of this.
Has anybody else reacted to this issue as we're being asked to, like other districts?
I don't know where they stand. This
I
is
know
probably where.
West Hancock has completely got.
They got rid of them a long time, but that district has not been on board with.
So are we
masks
just talking
since.
through summer before next school year?
I'm
Or are
talking-
you including next school
No,
year?
all I'm looking right now is on June 1st, after the last day with my teachers, our mask mandate expires. Do we have any guidance after that?
Well, my thought is that when those kids are not at school, not at practice, not at an activity, or teachers that are communally out and about, we're not wearing masks. I mean, that's the reality of it. in my office, do I wear a mask when I have a customer in there? Yes. Do I wear a mask when I do not? No.
I think you could go to mask are recommended and everybody chooses for
then
themselves,
it's-
starting June 2nd. And then we'll have to
And
readdress
then
it
I
for the
say,
start of
can
the
we
school
just
year.
then
That's
reevaluate
what I'm
when
talking
school
about.
I
starts?
think you'd have to reevaluate it when this next school year starts.
Well, the other thing, can we make it something that, as you said, unless we have issues,
Here's how I would do that. I think I have the ability to put a mask mandate in until the next board meeting.
okay,
You know, where as long as I have
If
the authority
something
to
comes
say,
up that
we
you
have
feel
an
like you need
outbreak or
to.
we're told by the state we have to, I mandate it to be supported or denied at the next board meeting.
yeah, well, we
Following
can,
the state or.
whether you do have it now or not, we could include that in any motion toward that, to say that, you know, we will, on June 2nd, we will open it up a little more, and the superintendent has the power to reinstate the mask mandate if conditions warrant.
You just say masks are recommended after June 1st.
Well, what does that do for us, like the quarantine guidelines? If we're all not, believe me, I have mask fatigue, just like everybody else. I'd love to just take it off. But I guess I just worry, like,
If you're quarantined, and if you get quarantined and you're not wearing a mask and I'm not wearing a mask and you test positive, I'm gonna get quarantined. Now, we're talking summer school versus normal school.
Yeah.
There are cases of little kids testing positive. So if they would test positive, you could have to quarantine the class for 14 days. That's the risk you take when you go to recommend it.
Is it 14 days now or?
It might be 10, yeah.
7 or 10? or
Yeah.
I
whatever
thought
the
if
deal-
you were
But-
vaccinated, you didn't have to.
But our
quarantine.
kids wouldn't be vaccinated.
Yeah, but if you're
But
vaccinated
I'm
and
talking
they're
little kids though.
not,
If
you
I'm,
shouldn't
if,
have to quarantine.
if I send Jack to school
Right,
and he's sent by Darren's kid and one of those tests positive, they're both gonna be quarantined or
Right.
whatever it is. But the teacher will be all right.
that's
Well,
what I'm
public-
talking
I thought she said, public health said that even if you've been vaccinated, if you're around somebody that tests positive, not wearing a mask, you still have to quarantine.
I don't know about that.
That's right.
Point.
And that's, I'm almost positive that's what she said, but then that's her interpretation.
I asked for guidance about a week ago on summer school. I have not heard back.
Well,
I'm good with getting rid of the date thing, so.
I make a motion starting June 2nd, mask are recommended, but not required.
and the
Unless you
superintendent,
put-
Second,
Unless the state dictates, outbreak, emergency, that they're all required for the state or something. However you want me to word that, I don't know.
the superintendent has the right to reinstate the mask.
Yeah. With during an epidemics outbreak.
You have a motion.
second,
Been moved and seconded to do away with the mask mandate as of June 2nd, with recommendation to still wear masks when possible, and the superintendent has the ability to reinstate the mask mandate if conditions warrant.
other than the pure number of students, what's the difference between tomorrow and June 2nd?
Because I don't wanna open the gate until we get out of school. I won't, well, the thing is if I miss summer school, I don't miss school. If I miss school right now, I miss semester tests. So I've gotta get us to summer.
Do we have to set an end date, or can we just say till we,
Till the
Right.
It's
students
open
are-
until you
till
actually
we
get.
decide? I mean, I didn't know, like, say, because when school starts, because that.
We will readdress it at that point. We don't know what
August.
it's gonna look like, so.
It'll be back on the agenda before school starts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm guessing that's an August meeting decision.
Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Item number 19, proposal for design services.
SVPA is the architect we've been working with. I have them looking at options for ESSER funds. Those would include windows, ventilation, or HVAC at the middle school or the high school. This is just their fee proposal to look into the projects that I've given them the parameters for. I would recommend you approve this. And then once we choose a project, then we will come back for an official, this is the cost and the scope and what we would do if.
What was the price of it?
It's hourly right now.
Gotcha.
So if you look at the back page.
Yep.
It has what their hours are.
Yeah.
And then, right now, we're looking at windows for the high school. From a ventilation standpoint, we'll look at, I don't know how much that is, and if that's affordable, we'll also look at ventilation at the middle school that way too.
I'll make a motion to move forward with SVPA.
Second.
Been moved and second to approve the proposal for design services. Are there any questions or discussion?
Would the ESSER funds pay for the design services?
Yes.
Yes, that's what it is. I've already got that approval too.
Okay.
So I had to ask for approval and they approved it.
And maybe I missed that.
Well, the ESSER, this will all be covered under ESSER.
Okay.
The exploration is what it's called.
The third?
So ESSER 3 will pay for the exploration.
Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 20, Belmont Columbia to join Eagle Grove Baseball.
Belmont contacted neighboring school districts to see if anybody had interest in allowing their players to play with them for this year. They do have a large 8th grade class. They believe they'll have enough numbers in the future. So they were looking for 1 year. I talked to our AD and our coach and both seemed interested. So we said we would. Their players have joined us as long as we have board approval, then we're good with it. The only downside is you're gonna jump up a class. So when you go to, I don't know, Scott, if it's district or sectionals, but you'll be playing in 3A versus 2A. I mean,
One game probably.
yeah, I mean, it's worth it. It provides more opportunity for us, more competitiveness for us. We've got a young squad too, so it is going to be a good deal. I would recommend you approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second to allow Belmont Columbia to join the baseball team. Are there any questions or discussion? Is this one going to be a one-way, they're coming here?
They're coming here. This one's one way. They've hired a coach who will drive their kids over here. Everything will be in Eagle Grove and then they'll drive the kids back.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 21, board member reports.
What is the plan for graduation? Are we all there?
If you cannot make it to graduation, you need to let me know. Otherwise, we will do graduation just as we normally do. It will be outdoors as long as the weather is good. If it's not, we will call it a few days early and then move it indoors. If we move it indoors, do we have to worry about 5 people sitting on the stage close to each other?
I'm not worried.
Yeah, I think
I'm
if,
not worried.
yeah, as long as you're comfortable with it. If you're not comfortable, let me know, or if you can't be there, because sometimes people have other stuff. Otherwise, we'll plan on a normal graduation ceremony.
That's not really a good question because I'm not comfortable.
Yeah, he doesn't like to be there, period.
It wasn't, are you comfortable
Yeah,
with
so
what you
You're
have
at
to
the
do?
table.
Yeah, it
It's just sitting there.
It won't be as hot as last year, I promise.
The way the weather's been,
It can't be.
we'll be lucky to be about 50.
It can't be.
That day.
If
though.
it's really cold, I'm gonna need a space heater up there for it.
You will not get a space heater.
I'll bring you some foot warmers.
You may wear a coat.
Any other board member reports?
We had after prom that I participated in. I think it was very well attended. I think there was only maybe 4 or 5 that left early compared to prior years. So that, like I said, was very encouraging. The community was very supportive. So there was a lot of funds available this year, which may be a little change next year. It's hard to say. And Jess and I spent last Thursday out on the track with some helping with that. So that was yeah, several DQs on our corner up there. I think they were all mostly what he was watching. And I will say too, at the middle school track meet on Saturday, I work in the concession stand for cross country. And we did not even get to look out and watch a race. It was that busy all day long.
There's a lot
So,
of people there.
so that was encouraging just because that's been something I think that's been missing. You know, people have missed, like, you know, they talked to basketball, not getting to have concessions and stuff. And I mean, we didn't have enough food.
Very fortunate with our track meets this year that we
Yeah.
had runnable weather and good
So-
crowds at all.
And I mean, there must have been a lot of people there, because like I said, my only complaint is every kid comes to the concession stand with a $20 bill and spends about $1 the first time. So it's,
Raise
So you really had to use your math skills.
well, we were
No, you weren't having
scrambling. We
low-
were,
low
we were
money.
just scrambling to have change.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'd say, well, you're gonna have to wait a minute. I mean, I wrote an IOU for one kid for $14 to come back.
Those weren't my kids, they spent it all.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say.
It's all 20.
There will be concession stands for baseball, so I can tell you that already, for baseball and softball games.
We did have some leftover water, that's going to the track team, and Logan took some for football. I think several desserts were left in the teacher's lounge, which worked well because it was teacher appreciation. Probably mostly in the elementary because that's where we were, but,
Jared's not complaining.
Do we have a group out of one of the schools traveling or wanting to travel to Washington DC?
That's that group that 2 years ago we approved to go,
Okay,
and they're still planning on going. They're changing the itinerary a little bit so that, because there's things that aren't open up totally yet, so like one day they're going up to Gettysburg rather than doing something in Washington DC, but there's I think Carrie said there's like 18 or 19 kids
Well,
that are still planning on
a
going.
patron approached me and said if they're having money trouble getting to there where they need.
Who said that? Somebody in town.
Yeah.
Carrie did approach.
She did.
She did approach somebody
But
that,
she never went back, and he was concerned that she never came back.
well, I'm not sure about, she talked to me about it, and I'm not sure, what the kids said when she talked to them.
Yeah.
I'll ask her
But
tomorrow.
the guy with the money said that she never came back, and he was willing to come up with money, so I just talked to him today, so he was a little
Okay.
bit
Yeah,
concerned.
there was two kids that basically,
Yeah, that was kind of the gist I got.
and I think it came about because it was like, had they started paying and then couldn't continue paying, and she didn't know that, so maybe it was that they haven't paid anything.
Yeah.
I don't
So,
know. I'll ask her tomorrow.
you know,
And
there is possibility of funding available.
Yeah. Yeah, he was very,
It just came
Very
to
good
the
about
middle
that.
school.
And the other
And it was a
part of the
choice.
same
Like you could sign up.
deal was, they're still interested in pursuing a baseball field. So I told him he needs to come talk to you. I'm not gonna make that decision, so. I don't think that the city is going to be in that any longer, so.
Great.
Anything else? Superintendent's report.
Most of the stuff we've went over, School Board Recognition Week, thank you for all that you do. I will be taking your picture afterwards for the paper, so don't rush out of here. Hiring, we're in full swing. Hopefully by June, we will have the majority of our positions filled. Summer planning, we are finalizing our projects. A lot of these are gonna be filled with ESSER money. We are looking at a playground at the elementary, a couple new Suburbans, ventilation for the band room, like we talked about, the windows and exteriors. We will be offering summer school with our ESSER funds. We also are looking at redoing what was the old gymnasium in the high school we have kids eating in there, to put new flooring down to make that look better, and a lunchroom expansion. On May 20th, we should be in for our substantially finished for this building here, so we'll do a walk through there and figure out what's on the punch list, so that is ahead of schedule and winding down. I think everything else we've covered that I have on my list. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Applications coming in still for positions and everything?
Yeah, but they're slow.
Slow.
They're, high school positions, we're lucky if we get one or two. We've moved some staff from within to fill the positions. We've got a middle school science position we've got nothing for 2 weeks. High school science, we had one that wasn't qualified. Math, we've had 6, most of them won't return the phone calls. It's tough.
How many
Very tough.
applicants did you get for like those elementary positions?
So we had 3 positions posted, or available, and we had 6 applicants.
Wow.
And you used to get 200.
I was gonna say,
300
that's why I was
elementary
curious
schools.
what the
Which
number
didn't
is
call me
now.
back, and
I
then
know this isn't.
one canceled the interview the night before. So it's really,
For those
it's a little frustrating.
High school.
Wow.
I don't, I appreciate the flyer.
I have some
Yeah.
flexibility.
Yeah, and that's what I was wondering, you know, because that's essentially.
But they're just not
So.
that many
Not a lot of
teachers
them.
coming out of school, or?
A lot of people, like we've had some people from Waldorf, they're done student teaching, they're pretty much done with their degree. It's like a May term class where they spend a week in a diverse experience, and that is us now. And so every person I've talked to, they've gotten a job already. You really gotta start trying to hire earlier and
Well,
earlier.
Your numbers are down too, and this is my political statement for the night, but when you have stagnant SSA, which is how much they give us each year at 2.5% and 1.75%, your salaries are too low. We negotiate, we give everything we can, but if you go to the business world, you're making $10,000 more. So they don't have to go here. I've got people without college degrees that are being paid more than I can pay here with people with college degrees. So it's a legislative issue when they just quit giving us funds. We used to get 4% every year, and now we are happy with 2.25%. So it just, our pay is not good for professional services.
Any other questions for superintendent? No,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
All right, great.